The 2021 fall semester is just around the corner for the Brazos Valley students. How school districts in the Brazos Valley are reacting to other districts going against Governor Abbott's orders. Plus, we're teaming up with Baylor Scott and White to address a very important need in the community: blood. What the hospital staff is asking you to do coming up. Your KRHD News starts right now.
Connecting the Brazos Valley. This is KRHD News.
Good evening and thank you for joining us for KRHD News at 6. I'm Hallie Jones. Major school districts in the state of Texas are starting to defy Governor Abbott's latest ruling on requiring masks in schools. KRHD reporter Rebecca Fiedler joins us now to see what kids and their parents can expect in Brazos County.
As several major metropolitan public school districts in Texas decided to instate mask mandates despite the governor's orders, today I spoke with some local school districts to discuss their own plans for the fall semester. Dallas, Austin, and San Antonio ISDs have implemented mask mandates over the course of the week, despite Governor Greg Abbott's executive order not to do so. The Brazos Valley's two largest school districts, Bryan and College Station ISDs, have made the decision to continue following Abbott's direction and not enforce a mask policy.
We are going to continue to work very closely with our fellow education agencies around the Brazos Valley, our local health department here in Brazos County, and also listen to the guidance from the Texas Education Agency and the Department of State Health Services.
While neither district will require students or staff to wear masks, both have stated that the practice is encouraged. Each noted that their administration are aware of the stance that larger cities are taking, but that deviation from the governor's orders is not in the cards for the local area.
Everyone's looking and they know what other folks are doing. But the reality of the situation is that College Station ISD, we're going to follow the governor's executive order.
It gets into a very slippery slope when the governor's issued an executive order for the state and told a school district you cannot do something, and then the school district says we're not going to follow what the governor's saying. The example we're setting for our students, we believe that it's important to continue to follow the governor's executive order.
Teachers and administrators will face many challenges this year related to COVID. College Station and Bryan ISD are unable to offer virtual learning for any students who are homesick or quarantining, as the state government did not provide funding for schools to implement virtual learning options.
They will allow up to 20 days of remote conferencing, but the stipulations around it make it to where it really isn't feasible.
The districts will continue to promote other safety precautions such as hand washing. Students and staff will be instructed to self-screen for COVID-19 symptoms before coming to school, and both districts will require an individual to isolate at home if they test positive for COVID-19. Still, determining all proper procedures when dealing with positive COVID cases or potential exposure to the coronavirus, well, it's tricky to navigate.
The TEA is saying that contact tracing is the responsibility of your local health authority. They're also saying that a school district should notify those in close contact of a positive COVID case when the school district knows about it. So it's kind of a mixed message right there.
As always, we'll keep you updated as the school year progresses. Reporting in Brazos County, Rebecca Fiedler, KRHD News.
Two state district judges are giving authorities in Dallas and Bexar counties temporary power to issue mask mandates. The Texas Tribune says following the ruling, San Antonio's health district and city manager announced a temporary mask order inside of schools and city facilities. The Dallas County judge says he anticipates issuing an emergency order today. Harris County Judge Lena Hidalgo says that the county will file a lawsuit to challenge the governor's mask mandate ban. This in a tweet last night saying she is granting authority to the Harris County attorney. Hidalgo continued in her tweet saying, quote, "Protecting the community during an emergency is a duty, not an option for government leaders." Meanwhile, in Conroe, St. Luke's Health says it is temporarily closing the doors of its emergency room. They say this is in response to, quote, capacity and critical staffing shortages. The hospital is asking patients to go to a preferred emergency room or check into a different location. For more information, head on over to stlukeshealth.org. It's a new start for Texas A&M students and faculty this upcoming fall semester, and a new vaccine incentive on campus is intended to encourage students to get their shots. Vaccinated students will be entered into a drawing to receive funding for educational expenses. If students are sick, they will need to follow protocols that have been established prior to the pandemic. One international student says returning to the classroom is the main reason he traveled such a long journey for his studies.
It's a good step in order to motivate people to get vaccinated. Having in-person classes is fantastic, and I'm really looking forward to it, and that was the main reason as to why I deferred my admit from fall.
Students and staff will be required to get tested on campus and submit their results by September 10th. If these rules are not followed, it could lead to expulsion. Well, across the country, the pace of vaccinations is picking up again. According to a tally by the CDC, the average pace of first doses has doubled from just a month ago. In fact, the number of first doses administered has gone up in nearly every state. The number of people getting vaccinated had started to drop significantly until early July. Vaccinations have mostly risen among adults between the ages 25 and 39 years old. And Facebook says a group from Russia that tried to spread misinformation about COVID vaccines is now off the social media platform. The Russian accounts tried to recruit influencers to spread anti-vaccine messaging. Facebook says the group mainly targeted users in India, Latin America, and some users in the U.S. The Delta variant continues to spread, with school starting next week in Bryan and College Station. As parents look for ways to keep their children from getting COVID, some are turning to homeschooling. Renee Alsandor is a homeschool math teacher in the Brazos Valley. She says homeschooling is a good way to continue to educate your child while also relieving the stress of health and safety.
In a way, you can deal with the education part without being concerned about the COVID concerns. There are plenty of homeschool curriculums that are pretty much plug and play, is what I would call it, where the parent can literally plug in the video, the child watch the video, the child fill out their books, and it takes a lot of the weight off the parent.
If you're interested in homeschooling your child, visit hslda.org for more information. Well, the need to donate blood is more important than ever, as experts say this past year and a half has been worse for blood donations. This week, KRHD 25 News is teaming up with Baylor Scott & White Medical Center and College Station to hold a two-day blood drive. I met with Baylor Scott & White staff who are encouraging the community to come out and donate. The need for blood donations continues to grow as coronavirus cases rise. Baylor Scott & White Medical Center wants the community to know that donating blood is safe, even during the global pandemic.
There are a lot of practices that we put into place during the donation process to make sure it is sterile, that the team is trained.
Nationally, we have been in a blood shortage going on 3 years. Ashley Kopic with Baylor Scott & White says she hears a lot of misconceptions about donating blood, but wants the community to know it is safe and an easy process.
From start to finish, it takes about 35 minutes, and the actual donation, getting the blood, is about 10 minutes. So it's something that can be done either during your lunch break or directly after work.
And when you do donate blood, your donation stays local.
Rest assured that the blood does stay local, so you are helping your own community. Within the hospital setting, like if we do have a trauma that came in, so maybe it was a gunshot wound or it was a car accident, we may give blood to those patients. During surgeries, that somebody that may even have an elective surgery, like a hip fracture, they fell, that they may need blood post-op. And then also you think about your chemo patients, so they may need blood. So there are different circumstances here locally that we do use that blood.
All reasons why blood donations are critical, and Kopic says you are still eligible even if you've received the COVID vaccine.
The recommendation is to wait about 2 weeks after your second full vaccine that you can donate blood.
The next blood drive is Thursday from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. at Baylor Scott & White Clinic, College Station, University Drive, and again Friday at Baylor Scott & White Hospital and College Station.
The newsfeed starts with concerns about rising gas prices slowing our country's recovery. Today, the National Security Advisor is calling on OPEC to move faster to restore the global oil supply back to pre-pandemic levels. The White House is also asking the FTC to investigate the U.S. gas market for any anti-competitive behavior that may be increasing prices. Well, we could finally be getting some relief after months of big price increases on everything from food to used cars. New numbers from the Labor Department show consumer prices increased last month at the slowest pace since February. Well, prices could be going up to mail your packages at the post office over the holidays. The U.S. Postal Service is proposing temporary hikes from October through December. In most cases, you'll be paying around 75 cents more. The price change is similar to what we saw back in 2020. Well, some companies are dropping education requirements as they struggle to find workers. The things that could help you stand out instead when you apply.
A young Texas A&M-based startup company is undertaking new research and development aimed at bringing more efficient and super fast charging batteries closer to markets. The startup called Flexoids is conducting research into lithium batteries like those in electric cars and smartphones. They're working to integrate them with different elements like sulfur. This is in hopes that the two elements can create a faster charge while also reducing the demand for rare earth elements.
Of course, the other environmental impacts, we don't use any rare earth metals in this, except for the lithium. We completely eliminate all the nickel, cobalt, manganese. So from an environmental standpoint, based on the pollution caused by mining, we are going to completely eliminate all of that by using sulfur.
Because sulfur is a byproduct of oil refining that needs to be removed, the research team is hopeful that a successful lithium sulfur battery can be much cheaper in comparison to the lithium ion batteries currently in electric vehicles.
Battery cost is almost half of the vehicle price. So, which is why current electric vehicle is so expensive. So the cost is really the main driver. And so if electric vehicles becomes more popular, then the cost of the battery has to be much lower, and which is really important.
Before diving into the development of car batteries, Flexoids will first focus its efforts on refining and improving technology for use in mobile devices in the private and defense sectors. Well, if you filed your tax return months ago, but you're still waiting for that refund, you're not alone. Millions of people still have not received theirs. Consumer reporter John Matteries looks into the delays so you don't waste your money.
I've been hearing from more and more viewers lately asking why they haven't received their tax refund yet. Well, we're finally learning some of the reasons why. The Don't Waste Your Money inbox has been filling up with emails from frustrated taxpayers like Mike Seenenman and Carol Abel. They ask, where is my refund?
Gone to their where's my refund site multiple times, and every time the answer is still pending.
It did finally say, we have your return, but we're still working on it.
Cynthia Jenkins says her son has been hit with a double whammy.
He's been waiting on that and his stimulus. He's never got either one.
With the pandemic and labor shortage, you might expect the IRS to be behind on processing paper returns this year. But the agency now admits it's woefully behind on both paper and some electronic returns. The agency's just admitted it has a backlog of 35 million unprocessed returns. It blames staffing issues, new tax laws, stimulus checks that all go through its computers. The IRS says your refund could take extra time if you filed for the Earned Income Tax Credit, requested a missing stimulus check, were unemployed last year, or were a victim of unemployment ID theft. It suggests you keep checking Where's My Refund at irs.gov, though Cynthia, Carol, and Mike are losing patience.
It's money that we definitely can use.
You can also try calling the IRS, but unfortunately the agency says less than 10% of people have been able to get through. As always, don't waste your money. I'm John Matteries, 25 News.
Turning now to a consumer alert, the Bureau of Labor Statistics says inflation is slowing down. Overall prices only went up 0.5%. The increase was mostly from a rise in food and energy prices. The price of used cars mostly stayed the same, while airline fares went down slightly. Economists say it's likely June marked the peak of inflation. The IRS is warning families tonight. They say scammers are using phone calls, emails, texts, and even social media to con families. Scammers tell people with families that they are eligible for the child tax credit and will send a link that takes them to a fake IRS website. The IRS reminds you that they will never send a text or email asking them to fill out a form with personal information. Finally, some good news when it comes to prices at the grocery store. Cheese is starting to become more affordable again. Cheese from Europe is expected to cost a little less. This comes just months after the U.S. eased tariffs on European goods. Not only have imports of cheese nearly doubled from a year ago, but American companies are also producing more European-style cheeses. Moviegoers will soon be able to use Bitcoin to pay for movie tickets. AMC says it plans on putting technology in theaters that will allow customers to buy tickets and even concessions using Bitcoin. The theater chain is still in the preliminary stages of making this happen. In addition to cryptocurrency, AMC also plans on making Google Pay and Apple Pay available in theaters by the end of the year.
And we know it's hot around here, so let's start off with the tropics tonight and showing you Tropical Storm Fred, which continues to move across Hispaniola here just to the north of Caribbean now and moving toward the Bahamas. And this is over land now, and there's some elevation there. So this can really rip apart a tropical system in a hurry. So winds down to 40 miles per hour, gust of 50, movement west-northwest at 15 miles per hour. So again, a minimal tropical storm. It could become a tropical depression as it continues to work its way off the Haitian coast there, and then probably regenerate into a tropical storm once again, and maybe getting a little bit stronger off the west coast of Florida as we head into the weekend. But again, that is well east of us, so not going to be a concern around here. All we have really going for us is a lot of heat, a few clouds, and a few pop-up thunderstorms, especially across southeast Texas, and a few of those may try to linger into our area as we head through the next couple of afternoons as well. Checking out your forecast here. Again, morning hours starting off with partly to mostly cloudy skies. During the afternoon, maybe a popcorn thunderstorm or two. Eastern half of the area definitely favored here east of Highway 6, probably about a 20% chance for a few isolated thunderstorms. Not only Thursday afternoon, but Friday afternoon as well. A few of those pop-up thunderstorms will be possible, but again, our rain chances the next 2 days, about 20%, should increase though as we head into early next week. So for tonight, temperatures dipping down into the 70s for us, and then we should make it up into the mid-90s, but it's going to feel like it's over 100 when you factor in that humidity as we move to the next couple of afternoons. And here's your 10-day forecast showing middle 90s around, right around 96 degrees Thursday and Friday, isolated thunderstorms again. And we'll keep that on Saturday. 30% Sunday, 40% as we head into Monday. So hopefully some slightly better rain chances. Give the lawn a little drink there and some free water, and temperatures remaining in the 90s.
The end of the war in Afghanistan brings with it a wide range of feelings, emotions, and opinions. But for many Americans who have fought overseas, the impact of war cannot be brought to a close. Chris Stewart shows us how some veterans are facing that reality and not letting their wounds dictate their lives.
This can be standing, this can be kneeling, or double kneeling here, curl the press. 30 seconds on, 30 seconds off, max reps, questions.
I wanted to make my impact, and serve my country in the way that I could.
I mean, I had a lot of intense body pain. I mean, no amount of pain meds they were giving me were making that stop.
Just, working, doing the American dream thing, and all of a sudden one day I was out riding my bike and a distracted driver, she was texting and driving, and she ran a red light while she was doing so, and boom, she hit me in one of the intersections.
Life can neither be easy nor expected.
Changed my life from what it was then to what it is now.
But for all the difficulty that adversity can carry, comes the opportunity to move past it. Inside this gym,
Oh, my arms are burning out!
you'll find many who don't see unthinkable hardship as insurmountable challenge.
It doesn't matter what your injury is, it's how you bounce back from that.
An attack during a mission in Iraq in 2006 changed Green Beret Randy Nance's life forever.
You look at yourself differently just because you do have some disabilities. And as much as I don't ever want to admit that or say that I'm disabled, it's a fact. I'm missing a part of my leg.
His injuries ended his military career.
I thought, man, the best years of my life may be behind me. It was the first time I'd ever had that thought.
But then he stepped into Adaptive Training Foundation outside of Dallas.
So that first class for me was pretty much life-changing.
Doing hard things together galvanizes us, allows us to open up about the reason behind the reason why we feel stuck or why we feel limited in our lives.
Runner, walker, ready! David Vobora founded this nonprofit after spending 5 years in the NFL.
Putting on a football helmet and going down on the gridiron pales in comparison to what they experienced, but the thinking around it was very synonymous.
People with disabilities from across the country apply to take part in customized 9-week training programs here at no cost.
Definitely helped me keep progressing in the good things, staying away from the bad things.
Marine veteran Brian Aft lost his legs while serving overseas.
Then it was a couple years in recovery at the hospitals and developed a really bad heroin problem.
Here, he found help.
You're gonna end up forcing yourself into a better mental place because you're still making physical improvements on yourself and you're gonna feel good about that.
When they tell you that you can't do this or you can't do that, this is a place of can.
After being hit on his motorcycle, Army veteran Keith Murphy had more injuries than most people have in a lifetime.
Dislocated shoulder, collapsed lung, 7 broken ribs, lacerated kidney, a broken hip, broken pelvis. My leg was amputated, broke my back, broke my neck.
But no injury could take away his ability to fight back.
I was determined to make my life back where it was before this happened, despite missing a leg. There is nothing that I can't do. I just recently rode my motorcycle to Mount Rushmore from here in Dallas. Round trip was 2,135 miles. I rode it all by myself. Easy. It's two-legged people that won't do it, but I did it, and there's nothing that you can't do.
More than 60 million Americans live with a disability. While many may never come to this gym, David hopes they hear the message that comes from it.
Wow, it's that moment that is actually the catapult to be able to position you to see beyond what you thought was possible for your life, but it just takes you kind of being this sponge to say, God, universe, right? I'm willing, to have your way with me, and I'll trust that it's going to be for my benefit.
In Carrollton, Texas, I'm Chris Stewart reporting.
New testing is underway to find out if 3 drugs used for other diseases may actually help people hospitalized with COVID-19 too. The World Health Organization says the drugs include one for malaria, one for cancer, and one used for people with diseases of the immune system. The U.S. government is sending nearly 837,000 Pfizer COVID-19 vaccines to Caribbean nations. The region has a spike in COVID cases. Haiti is among the hardest hit in the area. Well, ahead of a big meeting on Friday, we're looking at where the science stands on the need for COVID booster shots. Why some experts say giving the boosters too soon could be ineffective in the long run.
A new study put out by Texas A&M AgriLife scientists is showing that proper grazing protocols on cattle can reduce the agricultural industry's carbon footprint. The research has shown that animals such as cattle are an important piece of the puzzle towards sustainable agriculture. By having cattle graze on permanent perennial grasslands and being properly managed, this would yield improved soil carbon, rainfall infiltration, and soil fertility.
They contribute to putting more carbon in the ground than they emit. So if we manage along the same veins as the evolved connection between grass and animals, then in fact they are very positive in taking carbon out of the air and putting it in the soil.
Another benefit to higher carbon in soil is that it lessens the chances for ground erosion. Baylor President Dr. Linda Livingston and Athletics Director Mack Rhoades held a press conference this afternoon to discuss the findings of an NCAA investigation into former football coach Art Briles and the sexual assault scandal surrounding the team. This about 5 years after Briles was fired. In its decision, the NCAA said that Baylor, quote, argued those failings, however egregious, did not constitute violations of NCAA rules. Ultimately, and with tremendous reluctance, the panel agreed. Here's what Mack Rhoades had to say earlier this afternoon.
While we disagreed with the enforcement staff along the way, we never stopped doing our part in seeking the truth. Ultimately, the findings today are an important reminder for our university, and particularly disheartening and painful for the survivors of interpersonal and sexual violence.
Baylor later released a statement. It says in part, "We must remember that the prospect of NCAA penalties pales in comparison to the suffering of the survivors of such horrific assaults." While the Baylor situation is stealing headlines, WTAW's Zach Taylor joins us with what's going on around the rest of the world of sports.
Here's your 25 Sports Update with WTAW Zach Taylor.
Hey KRHD viewers, one of the biggest storylines coming into this fall's football season is who will be Texas A&M starting quarterback. Sophomores Haynes King and Zach Calzada are currently duking it out for the job, but Coach Jimbo Fisher has not given a timetable for an official announcement. The Aggies kick off the year on September 4th at home against Kent State at Kyle Field. The NCAA says its investigation of the Baylor sexual assault scandal will result in nothing more than probation and some other relatively minor sanctions. The ruling comes 5+ years after the scandal resulted in the firing of Bears football coach Art Briles and the departures of athletics director Ian McCaw and school president Ken Starr. The Houston Astros capped off a 2-game sweep over the Colorado Rockies this afternoon, 5-1 at Minute Maid. Aledmus Diaz finished the day 3 for 3 at the plate with 3 RBI, and Framber Valdez picked up the win on the mound. Now, the Texas Rangers snapped a 6-game losing skid last night with a 5-4 extra inning win over the Seattle Mariners. The two teams duke it out again this evening at 9:10. From the WTAW Sports Studio, I'm Zach Taylor.
The CDC's Advisory Committee on Immunizations will be meeting this Friday to discuss a strategy for booster shots. Some countries are already administering a third dose due to diminished protection over time. But the World Health Organization says that's the wrong strategy. Usher Qureshi talks to experts about the contentious debate over what to do about boosters.
We know from data that over time the protection from the COVID vaccines weakens, but does it drop low enough to require a booster shot?
The original strains of the virus show that vaccine immunity starts to wane at maybe about 6 months or so, but that change is very small.
At 6 months, it drops from 95% to about 90%. With new variants like Delta, the efficacy, says Dr. Michael Angaroni, may drop down to 75 to 80% with the Pfizer vaccine. And a study from Israel puts the drop between 91% and 39%. All still prevent severe COVID illness.
But I think the more interesting factor is that we're not seeing those individuals who've had the vaccine getting the critical illness that we see in unvaccinated individuals.
Still, the Food and Drug Administration could roll out a plan in the next few weeks to authorize an additional dose of COVID vaccine, specifically for people who are immune compromised. But recent data from Johns Hopkins suggests it could be an exercise in diminishing returns.
Giving a third dose does increase the antibody response in some people, but there's still a large percent of transplant patients who aren't responding to the vaccine even after a third dose.
The National Institutes of Health just began a pilot study to assess the antibody response to a third dose mRNA vaccine in kidney transplant recipients who didn't respond to 2 doses of the Moderna or Pfizer vaccine.
It may even be futile. You know, getting a third shot, getting a fourth shot for the people that are the most vulnerable, if there's still high amounts of circulating virus in their communities, they will still be at risk.
In the U.S., at least 50% of adults are fully vaccinated, with just over 70% having gotten 1 dose. Some health experts argue we should focus our efforts on vaccinating as many people as possible in the U.S. and around the world before we start giving booster doses of vaccine.
Less than 1% of all vaccine doses have gone to low-income countries. There are no walls in place. This is what's going to keep circulating.
Now it's time to start thinking about, well, what do we do for the rest of the world to start getting them to the 20%, 30%, 50% and more, so that we can really get everyone in the world access to these vaccines and get vaccinated.
Some experts say moving to boosters before increasing total vaccination numbers could prove ineffective in the long run, potentially extending the pandemic's potency.
The boosters will only protect you against the strains that the vaccine is made for. But as the virus circulates, you could have mutant strains that evolve, different variants that evolve that the vaccines won't protect against.
It's why reaching the unvaccinated, they say, won't just protect them, but everyone else as well. I'm Usher Qureshi reporting.
It's one of the last things you'd expect to see at a cemetery. Tomorrow, why solar panels are now ending up on unused land at these final resting places. The benefit it's providing for both cemeteries and renewable energy. But still to come today.
So this technology aims to reduce gun violence itself without infringing on that right to bear arms.
How that technology created by a high schooler works and how he hopes it could inspire others to take action on gun violence.
And here we are looking at the back half of the work week as we start you off with Thursday here. We'll have partly to mostly cloudy skies in the morning, maybe a couple of isolated thunderstorms tomorrow afternoon, especially east of Highway 6. So we're going to put about a token 20% chance in for your Thursday afternoon. Same can be said for Friday. A little more moisture around. So again, a pop-up thunderstorm here or there. Not looking spectacular, but if you happen to get under one, it could produce a heavier downpour. I do think better chances arrive as we head toward the weekend and early next week. That's probably going to bring our highest chance of rain over the next few days. So tonight, temperatures falling into the mid to upper 70s, between 75 and 77 for most of us. So it's going to be sultry in the morning. And then looking hot tomorrow afternoon. Highs into the middle 90s, but it'll feel like it's over 100 when you factor in the humidity. So get ready for that. And looking at that 10-day forecast, we'll go officially 96 for Thursday and Friday. Isolated thunderstorms possible both afternoons. We'll keep that around on Saturday at 95, 92. By Sunday, 30% chance for a few thunderstorms, 40% on Monday, and 93 degrees. So not much of an edge off the heat, but it will be a little bit lower. And we will have some scattered showers and thunderstorms around as well. And the highest probably again Sunday, Monday, possibly into Tuesday as well, before that starts to taper off into the isolated category as we head toward the middle and end of next week. And temperatures staying in the double digits, no triple digits in the forecast as of right now.
Remote education is something both teachers and students had to quickly learn and adapt to. Now it's a model future educators are learning more about at colleges and universities across the country.
One of the bigger lessons that we've learned is not necessarily academic, but really picking up on kind of the nuances within children in that virtual space.
At North Carolina State's College of Education, their students are studying virtual learning live as it happens with partner schools. They're learning which methods and tools may be useful in engaging students, whether it's remote, hybrid, or face-to-face.
And so picking up on, which students are turning their cameras on, which students aren't turning their cameras on, which students may have things that are going on in the background or kind of, the eyes to the side versus focusing on what's going on in the classroom, which students are speaking up or which ones are staying muted or which ones are utilizing the chat primarily versus speaking aloud in class.
Through her own remote learning experience with her 2 elementary-age children and as an educator, Erin Thomas Horn is most impressed by teachers' flexibility. She believes students are most responsive to remote learning when they have choices.
For example, the use of Seesaw, my children are elementary age, allowed, and we use that actually with our elementary candidates as well, but it allows students to respond visually or verbally or in writing or with pictures. And so really just allowing students to have a lot of choice allowed them to engage.
Mental and emotional wellness of students and educators is something tomorrow's teachers are also focused on. NC State's education students are learning things like meditation, mindfulness, and self-care. They're also building time into their schedules for check-ins with college staff and lunch chats. Well, an easier to remember suicide prevention hotline is supposed to launch nationwide in less than a year. We're looking into why the money to get it up and running smoothly still isn't available for most places. In less than a year, a new 3-digit phone number is supposed to launch nationwide. The goal with 988 is to have an easier to remember suicide prevention hotline. But as Maya Rodriguez tells us, in many states, the critical permanent funding needed for it to become a reality isn't in place yet.
Inside Jennifer Piver's office lies a quilt of loss.
It's such a treatable illness.
Every life here lost to suicide.
There's so much stigma and fear, and it doesn't need to be that way. We can do better.
Piver is Executive Director of Mental Health America in Greenville, South Carolina. And just a few steps from her office sits the heartbeat of the suicide prevention hotline here.
We have seen an increase in calls, particularly with our youth. We're already at more calls this year than we took all of last year.
As of now, callers to the nationwide suicide prevention hotline need to dial a toll-free 800 number.
That's, where all those calls get answered. It's by people who care and who are trained and who want to be there for people through life struggles.
To simplify calling for help, last year Congress passed and the President signed a bill to set aside what will be a new 3-digit suicide prevention hotline, 988. It's supposed to launch in July of next year. But there's an issue.
It will probably require many years of investment by local, state, federal governments, potentially philanthropy, to really put together a system that is responsive.
Chuck Ngolia is CEO of the National Council for Mental Health Well-Being. He says similar to what happened when 911 was established in the 1960s, getting 988 up and running will take time and money.
The way the Lifeline works right now is that there are Lifeline centers in every state, but then there are a few centers that are available to take excess call volume if local centers aren't available. So we need to make sure we have enough capacity to get calls answered in a timely way.
The federal government, in part, left it up to states to figure out how to fund 988. With less than a year before its official launch, only 3 states, Colorado, Nevada, and Washington, have passed legislation to fund 988 through cell phone user fees, similar to those for 911. Virginia allows for limited user fees, and Oregon set aside other state money for it. There's pending legislation in 4 states, and others passed a 988 bill with either no user fees or are still studying how to fund it. Everywhere else, though, state legislators have not taken steps to fund 988. In South Carolina, Jennifer Piver's team is relying on a 1-year philanthropic grant for funding. She remains optimistic, though, that state legislators will find a more permanent 988 funding solution.
We've had amazing conversations with legislators. Folks have come on tours. I think they're starting to understand the value of it, and we hope to engage them in helping us find sustainable funding for the long haul.
So that when the phone rings here, there will always be someone ready to pick up. In Greenville, South Carolina, I'm Maya Rodriguez.
Maya, thank you for that. Well, if you or someone you know is struggling with suicidal thoughts, you can call the nationwide suicide prevention lifeline. Since the 3-digit number isn't up and running just yet, you can call 800-273-8255. Well, change is coming within the mortgage industry that should make it easier for first-time home buyers to get approved. Starting next month, the 2 largest mortgage financiers, Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, will include rental payment history in their underwriting process. The information will come from a borrower's bank statements. This will especially be helpful for people who don't necessarily have a long credit history, but they consistently pay rent that may be even higher than the mortgage they're applying for. 10 people hurt in a mass shooting in New York City. More than 40 hurt in Chicago following several shootings, and 5 hurt in a mass shooting in New Orleans. And this all happened this past weekend. It follows a concerning trend of gun violence in the U.S. But one high schooler is taking it upon himself to try and tackle the issue and inspire others to do the same. Here's Dan Grossman.
Where there is dissatisfaction, concern, fear. Rarely is there a shortage of people chiming in with their opinions. But in one home in San Jose, California,
This is the device. Oh, it's on a Nerf gun right now.
there is a 17-year-old looking beyond lip service.
What it does is it locks and unlocks the trigger
to address an issue he feels has become stagnant in action.
There's a lack of solutions. There's people with different ideas who are able to convey their ideas, but they just tell us about what they feel, but they don't tell us how we can go from here.
Following the Las Vegas massacre in October 2017 and the Marjorie Stoneman Douglas school shooting only 4 months later, Amog Palasamudram sat down to design something that would marry his passions for computer engineering and change.
It's a threat on all of our lives. You don't know when it's going to happen. It's very unpredictable, which is the reason it's so scary.
The technology he came up with is this, an artificially intelligent camera that sits on the barrel of a gun and scans its environment. If it detects a threat like a gun pointed in an attack position, it will turn green, releasing the trigger for the owner to shoot. Otherwise, it remains locked in hopes it reduces accidental shootings or altercations that could be solved through other means.
So this technology aims to reduce gun violence itself without infringing on that right to bear arms.
I mean, it's a very big problem to, tackle. So yeah, it sounds good.
When Amog's parents heard about it, they were supportive. Not only did it address a fear he and his classmates felt, it furthered a conversation in which younger people are taking more of an active role. A 2018 survey by Renable found 80% of millennial respondents felt the U.S. had a problem with mass shootings. 52% said the best way to solve it was through regulation of the Second Amendment, while only 5% said the best way would be through its repeal. Still, another poll by the Pew Research Center found 47% of all Americans don't support gun regulation.
Many companies, big companies, they're promoting this kind of to tackle global issues with technology. So that encourages this generation to come up with ideas to solve something like this and promotes that kind of thinking.
If it moves here, in this direction, it will be unlocked.
Amog's device has work to be done to ensure its accuracy, but it was awarded as a finalist at this year's Microsoft Imagine Cup that celebrates innovation as he approaches groups to support its development.
Yeah, we're really proud of him, yeah.
But the accolades are only a small reward compared to the inspiration Amog hopes this instills moving forward.
Even if it just establishes a ground for other smart technologies used to prevent gun violence, then it would still be very impactful.
I'm Dan Grossman.
Thanks for watching KRHD News at 6. We'll be back with more news and weather tonight at 10. If you need anything until then, go to krhdnews.com. Have a good evening.